The mansion stood like a palace on the hill, glowing against the evening skyline. Inside, laughter echoed, crystal glasses clinked, and the scent of luxury perfumed every corner. Ethan Cole, the young billionaire everyone admired, moved through his guests with effortless charm. He wore success like a second skin, tailored suits, a confident smile, and a careless attitude that only the rich could afford. Tonight's pre-party meeting with his closest friends was a warm-up for the grand birthday celebration that would take place in 2 days. They sat in the lounge, surrounded by expensive whiskey and the glow of golden chandeliers. Ethan leaned back on the couch, bored by the predictable talk about money, cars, and women. He wanted something different, something amusing. Then his eyes fell on Maya, the maid, who was quietly arranging flowers by the window. Her hair was neatly tied, her uniform plain, but her movements had a strange grace, soft, precise, and full of patience. "Hey, Ethan," joked one of his friends, smirking, "you should invite your maid to the party. Maybe she'll add some village charm to the guest list." The others laughed, and Ethan, carried by the moment, smirked. "Why not?" he said casually. "Let's see if she even knows what a party looks like." He picked up a fancy gold envelope from the table, the official party invitation, and waved it toward her. "Maya, you're invited. Don't say I never gave you a break." The laughter around the room grew louder. Maya turned slowly, unsure if he was serious. Her brown eyes met his, calm yet slightly wounded. She wiped her hands on her apron and said softly, "Thank you, sir. I'll be there." Her voice was gentle but carried a quiet strength that surprised him. For a moment, Ethan didn't know how to react. He shrugged it off, grinning. "Great. Don't be late. The dress code is elegant." As she walked away, the men continued to joke. "Ethan, you're unbelievable," one of them said, chuckling. "What's next?" "You'll have her sit with the mayor." "Relax," Ethan replied, lighting a cigar. "It's just for fun. She'll probably never show up anyway." But Maya did not hear the laughter behind her. She went to her small room at the back of the mansion, where the walls were bare, and the air smelled faintly of detergent. She sat on her bed and stared at the golden invitation in her hand. The words shimmered under the dim light. "You are cordially invited to the birthday celebration of Ethan Cole." A part of her wanted to tear it apart. How dare they mock her? But another part of her, deep and unshaken, whispered differently. "You work hard. You are not less than anyone. Why shouldn't you go?" She smiled faintly. Her reflection in the cracked mirror looked tired, her hair dull, her hands rough. But her eyes still held a spark of something fierce. The next morning, while cleaning the grand staircase, she overheard the butler speaking about the party's theme, gold and white, luxury at its finest. Maya noted every detail silently. That evening, after work, she walked to the small market district and began searching for something to wear. She had saved a little money over the years, enough for one special night. As the city lights flickered on, Maya imagined walking into that party, not as a maid, not as someone they could laugh at, but as a woman who belonged. She didn't want revenge. She wanted respect. In his penthouse office, Ethan didn't think twice about the invitation. To him, it was just another careless joke, another night of indulgence. But fate had already started to turn. The invitation meant to mock would soon become the reason his world would change forever. The days passed quickly, and the grand party drew near. The Cole mansion buzzed with activity. Decorators hung strings of golden lights across the marble halls, florists filled crystal vases with fresh orchids, and chefs in crisp white uniforms prepared endless trays of delicacies. Every corner gleamed with perfection. The air smelled of money, ambition, and pride. Ethan's friends kept teasing him about the maid guest. "So, did you really invite her?" One of them laughed while sampling the champagne. "You think she'll show up in her cleaning uniform?" Ethan smirked, pouring himself a drink. "If she does, it'll make the night even more interesting. Let's see if she dares." But far from the mansion's glamour, in a modest apartment on the edge of town, Maya was standing before a mirror. The reflection staring back at her was no longer the quiet maid in a faded uniform. She had transformed. Her friend, Rena, a seamstress from the neighborhood, had helped her design a dress, simple but elegant. It was made of golden silk that shimmered softly, hugging her figure with just enough grace to make her look like she belonged in a world of chandeliers. Rena pinned the last fold on the shoulder strap and stepped back, her eyes wide. Maya. You look, wow. Ethan Cole won't even recognize you. Maya smiled shyly. I don't want to shock him, Rena. I just want to walk in there with my head high. For once, I want them to see me, not the uniform. Her friend squeezed her hands. Then go and let them see what dignity really looks like. By the evening of the party, the mansion glowed brighter than ever before. The driveway was lined with luxury cars, their chrome flashing under the lights. A red carpet stretched from the entrance to the ballroom. Inside, violins played softly while waiters floated between guests with silver trays. Diamonds glittered, champagne flowed, and laughter echoed through the massive hall. Ethan stood at the top of the grand staircase, looking effortlessly handsome in a black tuxedo. Cameras flashed as guests greeted him, and women tried to catch his attention. He enjoyed the admiration. It made him feel powerful, untouchable. Yet, somewhere in the back of his mind, he remembered the maid's calm eyes and the quiet way she had accepted his invitation. He laughed it off. She wouldn't dare show up here. Then the music shifted. The double doors at the entrance opened slowly. A soft golden glow from the chandeliers fell across the marble floor as a figure stepped inside. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Maya stood there. Her golden dress caught the light like fire, her hair cascading in soft waves over her shoulders. She wore no flashy jewelry, only a pair of small pearl earrings and quiet confidence that outshone every diamond in the room. Her makeup was light, her smile calm, but there was something magnetic about her presence. Whispers spread through the crowd. Who is she? Is she a model? She looks divine. Ethan froze at the top of the stairs, his glass slipping slightly from his hand. His heart stumbled. For a moment, he thought it was a dream. Then realization struck. This was Maya. The maid he'd mocked, the girl he'd underestimated. Maya walked slowly, each step graceful, her eyes steady as they met his. The room's noise faded into silence. The arrogant billionaire, who once thought he owned the room, suddenly felt like the smallest man there. She approached the base of the stairs and smiled faintly. Good evening, Mr. Cole, she said, her voice smooth and calm. Thank you for inviting me. Ethan blinked, struggling to find words. The crowd waited, curious. He finally managed. You came. I said I would, she replied softly. The tension broke with a ripple of whispers. Ethan's friends exchanged looks of disbelief. The maid they mocked now looked like a goddess who had descended into their world. And, though the night was only beginning, everyone knew one thing. Nothing about this party would ever be the same again. The music swelled again, but the air was different now, thicker, charged with the unspoken awe that filled the ballroom. Guests who once bragged about fortunes and fame now whispered about the mysterious golden woman who had just walked in. Maya stood calmly, her chin lifted, as if she belonged among the chandeliers and silk gowns all along. Ethan descended the staircase, every step slow and uncertain. For the first time in his life, his usual confidence faltered. He had seen beauty before, plenty of it, but never like this. There was something about Maya's poise that silenced his arrogance. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, yet she commanded the room effortlessly. Would you like a drink? He asked when he finally reached her. She smiled politely. No, thank you, I prefer to stay clear-minded tonight. Her tone was gentle, but her words carried quiet strength. Ethan nodded awkwardly, suddenly aware of how shallow his world seemed compared to her calm grace. The guests around them began to murmur again. Ethan's ex-girlfriend, Victoria, a glamorous woman dressed in silver, watched from across the room with narrowed eyes. She approached with her usual entitled stride and looped her arm through Ethan's. Darling, she purred, won't you introduce me to your lovely friend? Ethan hesitated. This is Maya, he said quietly. She works here. Victoria's smile tightened. Ah, the maid, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. How adorable. Maya's expression didn't change. She simply looked at Victoria and said softly, yes, I'm a maid. I take care of this home every day. Perhaps that's why I understand it better than most of its guests. The room went still. A few people gasped. Victoria blinked, caught off guard by the gentle sting of the remark. Ethan felt heat rise to his face, not from embarrassment, but from admiration. Maya hadn't raised her voice, hadn't been rude, but somehow, she had turned the insult into a lesson in dignity. A man nearby, trying to smooth the tension, chuckled nervously. "Well said, Miss Maya, was it? Tell me, how does someone like you end up at a place like this?" Maya looked around at the glittering room, her eyes soft. "Sometimes, people think they belong somewhere because of their wealth," she said. "But belonging isn't about what you own, it's about how you make others feel. And tonight, I just came to celebrate kindness, if there's any left in this room." The violinist's music seemed to hush as her words sank in. A few guests looked down, suddenly uncomfortable. Ethan's throat tightened. Shame and admiration twisted inside him. He had thrown that invitation as a cruel joke, but the woman standing before him had turned the moment into something extraordinary, something pure. He extended his hand slowly. "May I have this dance?" Maya looked at him for a long second, then nodded. Of course. They stepped onto the dance floor. The crowd parted silently as the soft rhythm filled the air. Ethan guided her gently, and she moved with surprising grace. There was no trace of nervousness, only quiet confidence, like a queen disguised as a commoner. "You've surprised me," he said quietly as they moved. She met his eyes. "You never really looked before," she replied simply. Her words struck him harder than he expected. For the first time in years, Ethan felt small, not because of money or power, but because he realized how blind arrogance had made him. As they danced, the world around them blurred, the chandeliers, the murmuring crowd, even the jealous stares. It felt as if only the two of them existed, connected by an unspoken truth. When the music ended, the applause came hesitantly. At first, then stronger. People clapped, not just for the dance, but for something else, something genuine they hadn't seen in that room for a long time. As Ethan led Maya off the floor, his friends looked stunned. One of them whispered, "She just changed the entire mood of this place." Ethan didn't reply, he just watched Maya, realizing that somewhere between mockery and admiration, he had lost control of the evening, and maybe, his heart too. The night had grown quieter, though the mansion still sparkled with fading music and the lingering scent of champagne. Most of the guests had drifted to the terrace or gathered in small clusters, whispering about the woman who had turned Ethan Cole's birthday into something far more memorable than anyone expected. Maya stood near the balcony now, her golden dress shimmering faintly in the moonlight. She looked peaceful, her eyes lifted toward the skyline as if the chaos of the evening hadn't touched her at all. Inside, laughter continued, but her heart felt calm. She had come for her own dignity, and she had found it. Ethan watched her from across the room. The people around him talked and laughed, but their voices sounded distant. All he could think about was how different this night had become because of her. The arrogance that once fueled him had been stripped away, leaving something raw and real beneath it. He set his glass down and walked toward her. When he reached the balcony, she turned slightly, sensing him there. For a moment, neither spoke. The city lights glimmered below like scattered stars. "You changed everything tonight," he finally said quietly. "The room, the people, me." Maya smiled faintly. "I didn't change anything, Mr. Cole. I only showed up." He leaned against the railing, searching for words. "When I invited you, I didn't mean it kindly. I thought it would be amusing." His voice was softer now, stripped of its usual confidence. "But when you walked in, I realized how wrong I was. You made me see what real class looks like." She turned toward him fully, her expression gentle but firm. "People make mistakes. What matters is whether they learn from them." He nodded, his gaze steady. "Then I want to learn. I've spent years surrounded by people who only care about what I can give them. But tonight, someone I once overlooked made me feel small in the best way." A breeze lifted the edge of her hair. "You're not small, Ethan," she said quietly. "You just forgot what it means to see others as human. Wealth can build walls without us realizing it." He exhaled, guilt tightening his chest. "And you broke mine without even trying." They stood in silence for a while, the world around them fading into the hum of distant traffic and faint music from the ballroom. Inside, guests were beginning to leave, their laughter echoing like fading memories. Ethan turned to her again. "I owe you an apology, Maya. For the joke, for the way I treated you before, for everything." Her eyes softened. "Apologies only matter if they change how you act afterward." He nodded slowly, as if etching her words into his heart. Then I'll prove it. You deserve respect, not pity. You deserve to be seen. She looked at him thoughtfully, then smiled, a real, warm smile that reached her eyes. Maybe that's all anyone really wants. The music inside faded into its final song. Ethan extended his hand hesitantly. One last dance. Maya hesitated, then placed her hand in his. They stepped back into the empty ballroom, where the chandeliers still glowed softly above. No audience remained this time, just two people moving slowly under the lights, their footsteps echoing through the vast hall. As they danced, Ethan felt something shift inside him, a quiet understanding that money, power, and prestige meant nothing without humility, and Maya, the woman he once thought of as invisible, had been the one to teach him that. When the music stopped, she stepped back gently. Thank you for the dance, Mr. Cole. Ethan, he corrected, his voice low. Please. She smiled again. Good night, Ethan. Then she turned and walked away, her golden dress catching the light one last time before she disappeared through the doors. Ethan stood there for a long moment, watching her go. The mansion, once filled with noise and pride, felt suddenly too large, too hollow. But in that emptiness, something new began to grow: respect, humility, and a longing to become someone worthy of the woman who had walked into his life like a goddess, and left him forever changed.